Hi, well, my name's Reagan Tunstall. I've been with the Airmen since October. And I'm not extremely familiar with aviation as most people here are, but I'm learning, which is super fun. I'm here with Abby Austin, the executive director.
Hello.
And we're here with Mark Hanten today. And he is a sponsor of one of our generous prizes for the raffle this year, which is a flight-sing adventure in a de Havilland
Beaver.
Yes,
That's
okay,
right.
perfect. For 4 to 6 passengers, and it's for up to 2 hours. Mark, you're with Alaska Air Transporters, that's right?
Correct. Yes. And thanks for having me today. I'm excited to share a little bit about my business.
Awesome. Okay, great. Well, why don't you start with that? Tell us about your business and what you do.
Well, I've got a de Havilland Beaver on floats that I fly out of Lake Hood with a Part 135 air taxi certificate. So I take people flight seeing, bear viewing, take people and their gear out to their cabins, or I can take hunters out and drop them off. I can take fishing folks out and drop them off. I can take people out to lodges. Just kind of a general purpose 135 operation on floats.
Wow, that's a big variety of what you can do. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how long have you been with them, or how long have you been doing what you're doing now?
So I retired from a career in law enforcement in 2018 and immediately came up to Alaska and started flying. I started flying for a fishing lodge out in Iliamna. And from there, after the first season, I was flying a Cessna 182 that I had owned and got put together for Alaska. I put it on floats and got a lot of mods on it and got it ready for Alaska. And I flew that one season and realized, I need a beaver. If I'm gonna be doing this for real, I need a beaver. So I bought that airplane the next year and I flew for the lodge a couple more years. And then with COVID, I kind of realized I needed to be a little more diverse. And so I bought a 135 certificate and got everything transferred over and started Alaska Air Transporters 2 seasons ago. So flew some out in Iliamna, and then I moved the operation to Anchorage and Lake Hood last year. So the beginning of the season last year.
Oh, wow, that's incredible. Okay.
Yeah.
So where did you live when you were in law enforcement?
San Diego, California.
Okay. And what made you come up to Alaska? What made you decide that?
That's a good question. So I actually grew up at a steelhead fishing lodge and whitewater rafting lodge in Oregon. My folks bought the place when I was 3 years old. So I always grew up in the outdoors, hunting and fishing. And Alaska always came up as a destination for people who love the outdoors. And about 20 years ago, I came up on my first hunt and I was absolutely smitten with Alaska. So it was always a goal to get up here on a more permanent basis. And I was always interested in aviation. I started flying about 20 years ago. And at some point, being a bush pilot became a dream. And so I pursued that. Like I said, I had that Cessna 182. I always planned on putting it on floats. I got the Seaplanes West float kit for it, and a bunch of other mods like the extended baggage kit, improved propeller, and vortex generators, things like that that would make it a better performing aircraft on floats. And it served its purpose. It's a great airplane, but it really doesn't have the useful load to be good commercially. So anyway, that's kind of what brought me up there, the passion for Alaska and the passion for flying combined. And there's no place like Alaska for that.
Okay, I agree completely. That's really cool that you came from there all the way up here. That's super neat. Wow. So since you were in law enforcement, can you tell us a little bit about what you did when you were in law enforcement? And obviously you've been flying for 20 years. So how did you go from being interested in aviation for a while, but going into law enforcement and then decided you want to be a bush pilot?
Well, I had a long career in law enforcement. I was a cop in San Diego for 28 years. And I had a fantastic career. I did a tremendous, a wide variety of things. But one of my assignments that really kind of focused me in the right direction here was when I was the sergeant of the air support unit for the police department. And while we focused our efforts on helicopter support of the patrol officers in the field, we also had a couple of airplanes. And my job kept me too busy really to dive into the helicopter flying, supervising, managing all the everything involved. But I was able to get my private license on my own and then start flying the airplanes a little bit. And we used the airplanes for surveillance missions, and we used them for extraditing prisoners from other parts of the region. So they were really useful. It was they were Cessna 182 RGs, and I got a lot of experience. And after I left that assignment, then I continued to pursue my passion for aviation. I bought a 1948 Cessna 170, and it was one of those derelicts you see out on the ramp with a flat tire and a lot of issues going on. But my mechanic friend and I were able to put it back together, and I started flying. So I got my tail dragger endorsement, flew that for quite a while, upgraded to a 170B, and then ultimately to the 182 that I ended up bringing up there. So the law enforcement part, that part, managing the air support unit, kind of helped launch my passion even further.
That's amazing.
That's so
Okay.
cool.
I didn't even realize you could that was something that was an option or you could do in law enforcement. So that's really neat.
You're like the poster child for the Alaskan aviation dream. That's such a cool story.
Well, a lot of
Kind of
my
reflection about that.
workmates say that. So
Yeah. What kind of advice would you give someone else who's interested in kind of following that career path of, starting their own 135? What are some of the challenges you've bumped into along the way?
Well, there's definitely challenges, but my biggest advice is just do it. Just
Yeah.
make it a goal and continue to pursue it and overcome those obstacles as they come one at a time. And there's always things to stand in your way, but I think persistence, I guess, is the and I started this a long time ago. I mean, I got my float rating at Moose Pass about 11 years ago, I guess, with I was still working at the time. I had no real idea when I was going to retire. I just knew that it was something that needed to be done to get to my goal. And my wife was very helpful. That was my 50th birthday present.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. So I came up there, and I could have got a float rating down here someplace like on the Colorado River, but I knew that I wanted to fly in Alaska. So I wanted to come up there and do it for real, in real conditions. And so I did, and it has served me well.
That's really
Right on.
great.
All right.
That's really great.
Was there a moment when you realized that you wanted to be a pilot? Like, was that during your time during law enforcement, or was that a time when you were younger with your family being outdoors? Was there a specific moment at all?
Well, there was, I guess, several moments, really. My family has been involved in aviation my whole life. I remember when I was a kid, we'd have wings hanging up in the basement, and we would be stitching the wings. My dad always had an aviation project going of one sort or another between him and his mechanic buddy, who would buy an old airplane. The first one was a Ronca Champ that was in disrepair, and they rebuilt it and put it back together, flew it for a while. And then the next one was a Luscombe, and then the next one was a Super Cub. And that's kind of the way I grew up. But I didn't actually start flying myself until a bit later. I guess the biggest pivotal moment was when a Navy recruiter flew down from Portland to Southern Oregon, where I lived, and took me on a flight in a T-34 trainer. And it was amazing. With the helmet on and the flight suit on and the parachute. And we did barrel rolls and Emmelmans and loops and all this. And I was like, all right, I'm in. This is what I'm going to do. And I pursued that through college. And unfortunately, in my pre-commissioning physical with the Marine Corps, it was found that I had a quarter diopter too much astigmatism in my left eye.
Mm,
And you hear that story a lot.
yeah, that's a heartbreaker.
So I'm one of those guys. And so my wife at one point asked me relatively recently, does this, being a bush pilot, does that kind of scratch that itch you had to be a fighter pilot? And it does. It really does. The
great.
adventures that I've seen out there, it's been very amazing.
That's awesome.
That's super cool. Okay, very neat. So you went into the Marine Corps. That's when you went into law enforcement, and then eventually found your way back to aviation.
Yeah, the Marine Corps thing, I went through officer candidate school, but I never accepted my commission once I found out that I was not going to fly. I had a choice to make at that point. My who's now my wife was in medical school, and I decided to not go into the Marine Corps at that point.
Okay,
I feel like that was a solid choice.
Yeah, in retrospect, I think so
Yeah.
too. So
Yeah.
great. Well, I was gonna ask.
I want to talk about the airplane. Is it time to talk about the
Yeah, I think
airplane?
that sounds great.
So you said there was a moment where you knew, oh, I gotta have a beaver. Beaver's the only thing that's gonna do it for me. Can you share a little bit with people who may not be familiar what's so special about the beaver?
well, it is the quintessential bush plane. I mean, these things have been around. They quit building them in '66, I believe. There was about 1,650 of them built overall, but it's just the perfect blend of workhorse for the environment. It was actually designed with a lot of input from bush pilots from Canada and Alaska at the time, and they did some they took the input, like the door is wide enough to put a 55-gallon drum in, those kind of things. And the oil input is on the interior of the aircraft, so you could do it when it's sub-zero temperatures outside. And just a lot of those kind of things. And they designed it to fly on wheels, floats, or skis. So the utility is definitely there for Alaska flying. There are some funny stories about that. One of them is there's a rumor that the designers came or the engineers came to the designers when they had this thing all drawn up, and they said, yeah, this is going to work, but it's going to be really slow. And the response and it's a slower, but the response was, you only have to beat a dog sled.
The bar is low, huh?
Yeah, that's the competition here. And it does have limitations. I mean, it is a relatively slow airplane, and if you're flying long distances, certainly there are faster options. But the utility of it is it has not been matched by any modern aircraft since. So there's still so many of them in use. If you look around Lake Hood, all the big commercial operators are using them with good reason.
And there's nothing that smells like a beaver, and there's nothing that sounds like a beaver.
All right, good to know.
I have to tell you, Reagan, my whole life I dreamed of being able to fly a beaver, right? So after I got out of college, I spent a summer suffering in Bethel as a dockhand, because in exchange I got to log a few hours in a beaver. And I tell people it was the best, worst summer of my life, because it was so brutal and so hard, but I got to fly that airplane, and it was a life memory. I mean, it's such a special airplane.
Worth it then.
Worth it,
For sure.
worth it. Glad it's in the past, worth it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good to know. I did
Yeah.
not know most of that about the beaver. So
Yes, it's wild, widely beloved Alaskan airplane. Yeah.
all right.
What else? What else can we ask Mark about his business?
Well,
That's a good one right there.
Yeah, well, how did you get involved with us at the Alaska Airmen's Association, and what part of it do you connect with? How did that originally happen?
Well, I came by because I was totally unfamiliar with what was going on with Alaska aviation when I first got up there, obviously. And I did like the fact that you were, well, it's very warm and I guess welcoming environment, and you guys help people out with questions and point people in the right direction. And more recently, I've really connected with your approach to youth and trying to motivate young people into aviation.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've got a big pilot shortage, and I think that that the association does a tremendous job of creating that spark and showing people that aviation is an attainable passion, dream, and career path. So I think that's one of the things that I really like the most about the association at this juncture. The fact that you're motivating young people to look at aviation as a career.
Well, that's great. We appreciate your support. We've definitely put a lot of effort into that, and we've seen the results. So we're gonna keep at it for sure.
Yeah, and it's awesome. It's clearly needed when you look at the lack of pilots in the pipeline, the lack of mechanics in the pipeline. It's something that we really need to focus energy and attention on, and I appreciate what you guys are doing.
So that is a great segue to talk about the raffle. So I just want to remind everyone that every raffle ticket purchase goes to support those programs. Supports the Next Gen Workforce Development Program. It supports scholarships. It supports Adam White's advocacy work. Every raffle ticket is like a gift to the association and funds those programs, in addition to all the amazing prizes you can win, like this fantastic flight seeing package from Mark and Alaska Air Transporters.
Absolutely.
So, Reagan, you want to remind us how people can buy tickets?
Yes, so you can call us like previous years at 907-245-1251, and we can help you out. Or you can go to our website, alaskaairmen.com or
.org.
.org.
AlaskaAirmen.org. Yep.
All right. And purchase them all by yourself in the comfort of your own home.
That's right.
Well, with that said, Mark, I think we have one last question for you, if that sounds okay.
Sure.
I just wanted to know what your favorite part, loved most about aviation, your plane, just the whole thing in general. What just memory that's going to speak to you forever?
Well, I think I love flying. I love the feeling of freedom and adventure that I get when I am actually flying. And sometimes it's a little scary out there flying into the weather, and you really, I think flying gives you that sense of overcoming nature to a certain extent. Although in Alaska, you don't want to get too confident because it'll come around to haunt you. But it does teach you humility, but it also is it's a way to feel free and to chase those dreams and passions. So I love the flying and the freedom I feel from it, and the ability to go places you couldn't otherwise go. I mean, that's what it's all about in Alaska. You can't get to places without airplanes and aviation in Alaska. It's just so many thousands of miles of vast, adventure out there, but you got to get to it, and that's what aviation does for you. And I would like to say, if anybody has any, if anybody wants to know any more about my operation, they can find me on my website, which is alaskaairtransporters.com. And if they want to, I'm also on social media, so they can follow me on Facebook or Instagram from the website. And I've got a little blog on there where I talk about a couple of aviation issues, and love to have people check it out.
That's
Wonderful.
Really great.
All right. Thank you for that. That was a great answer. I love to hear that. Awesome.
Thank you for sharing your story with us, Mark.
Yes, thank
It's a
you.
great story. Thank you for supporting the association with your raffle sponsorship. We're just glad you're part of the team. We really appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate that, and keep on doing the good work. Keep those kids motivated to become mechanics and pilots, and coming out and go for rides. So
That's right. That's right. We'll keep at it.
thanks a lot.
Thank you.